Is that good? Awesome, okay. Hello everyone. My name is Ria. I work for eBay Europe. And at the moment we're in the process of forming a new team, a product development team where we all work agile. So we've got about 7 Scrum teams. We're based across London, Berlin and Zurich. And the UX team that I'm forming is at the moment about 4 people, and we are recruiting. So come and talk to me later if you want to work for eBay. Today I want to talk about workshops. So we've seen a few talks today already, and people have been, there's the shots of people looking at walls covered in post-it notes, which we're all really familiar with. I just want to talk about whether we're doing enough with our workshops and whether we can do more. So first of all, can I just have a show of hands? How many people have run a workshop before in some capacity as a UX person? Okay. And how many of you have done that in the last month, let's say? Okay, so for some of you it's a relatively recent thing. So, just recently, because we are recruiting, plug, I've been interviewing a lot of people, so you speak to a lot of people who consider themselves to be UX designers, and you ask them, what do you do? Tell me your process, give me an idea of how you approach a problem. And quite often, they say, as part of that, okay, so what we do is we get people together and we run a workshop. And I go, oh. So then I get all excited, and I go, oh, what do you do in your workshops? Tell me about the process, what sort of techniques do you like, things like that. And sometimes they just kind of say something, they show me something like this, and they say, we just get people together, and we just, just sort of brainstorm ideas, and then, prioritize them. You think, okay, well, that's one thing you can do in a workshop, but really, depending on how you're using it, you might have quite a lot of people there. That's the perfect moment at the start of a project where you've got goodwill, you've got momentum, you've got possibly some quite expensive people in the room. You might have senior managers, you might have directors. So really what I want to talk about today is what you could be doing at the initial stages of a project with a workshop in order to really create a spark, because that spark that you create at the start is something that hopefully will roll through the project and keep things going. So, oh yeah, sorry. I like this cartoon. But that's kind of, sometimes when people talk about workshops, it sounds a bit like they're saying this. We do stuff and then designs happen. But to me, the workshop can be a tool to actually make the miracles happen as well. So first of all, let's talk about creating the right environment. Getting the right people in the room. So how many of all of you who said that you've run workshops before, how many of you have only had other designers in the workshop with you? It's a good start, okay. How many of you have had developers in there? Awesome. What about directors, senior managers, people like that? Okay. Customers? End users? Awesome, okay. So the first thing is about getting the right people in the room. You want business representation, and ideally you want it to be the people who can steer the project, the people who've got the nuts to make changes. Ideally, you want people who have exposure to customers, so the folk that work on your support desk, usability people, not necessarily on that project, but from other parts of the business that can share insight. People with technical knowledge, so it's becoming more common, I think, to have your developers in from the start, but there are still people who will kick off a project and not have someone present who knows the systems that you have to work with. And facilitation is a really key thing, as I'm sure you all know. But running a good workshop where you can sort of squeeze the maximum value out of it, you need to have at least 2 facilitators. You need to have at least one person who's doing the sort of stakeholder faddling. You need somebody else who's sort of making sure that they gather up all those insights. Possibly even a third person who's just keeping an eye on the dynamics in the room, making sure everyone's engaged. So it can be quite intensive. This is an example of the sort of workshop that we did at eBay recently. So as you can see, we have some developers in the room. And we have a fairly, you want it to be fun, you want it to be engaging. The other thing that's important, I think, is setting the tone. So I've spent some time in the past, particularly at MoneySupermarket, working with ThoughtWorks. And ThoughtWorks are really good at this. You bring all these people together, tell them why they're there, and actually the reason they're there is because they already know tons about the customer, tons about the business. There's so much in their brains, all you have to do is get it out. And so you want to be sort of drawing out of them the natural creativity that they've already got. But really, in order to do that, you have to reassure them that that creativity is there, that they already know stuff. This isn't an exercise in you sort of telling them how it's going to be. It's more about engaging them and getting them confident. And one of the things I think is a big success factor is setting up house rules. So taking people off-site is very good. It's quite difficult, I think, and depending on your company culture, it can be quite difficult to say, laptops shut, phones off. All of these things really help with focus, but sometimes just taking people out of their normal working day can really help as well. Because if you're on site and you're just in a meeting room, the temptation to just nip out and see how that thing's going can be quite strong for people. The other thing that's quite nice to do is to have a parking lot. So if you've got a good dynamic going in your workshop and you've got tons of people and putting together tons of ideas, hopefully having tons of debates because you've got the right people together, you probably need to have a parking lot, which is just a way to say, I'm going to stop this now, but we're not going to forget about it. So you want a way to be able to keep moving the day along without losing some of the debates that you're going to have. So on a theme of debates, one of the things a workshop can be really nice for, particularly the early stages of a project, and especially when you're in bigger companies that are quite jaded. I mean, I don't know how many of you are from sort of larger companies where you've kind of seen it before. So you get these people into a room and you go, this is going to be awesome, and they go, yeah, whatever, because they've seen the last 5 intranets, or they've seen the last 3 websites that, and every one of them was going to totally save them all the time and make them more productive. So how do you overcome that? How do you get them to just extend you a bit of trust and cut you some slack? One of the techniques that I like to use for this is, I call it the speedboat, anchors and engines. There's different words for it, different names for it. But this is just a really nice way to basically have a bit of a group therapy session where you just ask everyone to brainstorm for this project. What are all the things that might hold us back? What are all the things that are going to push us forward? And then just watch them all go, and complain, and there's all sorts of hair tearing and grumbling and whatever else. But they put them all up there. And what you then do is you just read through them, you group the similar ones, you read through them, and you can have that discussion together as a team. And so it's a nice way to clear out some of the cobwebs, clear out some of the bad expectations. So some things might come out that are to do with, projects that have happened in the past. And so people just need to be able to say, well, one of the things that will hold us back is, the business will change their priorities at the last minute. And you go, well, it will. So what you can then do is decide how you're going to, as a group, decide how you want to mitigate that risk. If you hadn't had that conversation, then it's just grumbling away in people's minds and there's a doubt about the project. So it's just really nice to sort of flush it out. The other thing that workshops are really good at, and actually sometimes quite underused for, is just sharing knowledge. So, from an agile perspective, when we kick off a project, we have this sort of inception or project chartering or whatever you want to call it. Some of the point is to get people together because you want to start working as a team. But actually, you save yourself tons of time and energy and explanation and documentation, if you believe in documentation, if you just share knowledge with the group as widely as possible, encourage debate, and let people contribute. So, if you're going to get all those people into a room, then let that be the time where you crack out the performance metrics. So you can guarantee that not everyone in the room understands to the same degree what's going right and what's going wrong with the site. So let's share those, let's have a debate about them. Sort of dirty laundry, air the dirty metrics laundry. Sometimes I've been in conversations in the past where it turns out we don't know. So we bring out all the metrics and none of them match up and you go, oh, balls. Oh. But even that's good to know. It's important to know it as a group at the start. Usability testing finding. So obviously, workshops don't have to be the start, the very first thing, the first engagement. Doing some work up front, doing competitor analysis up front, bringing that so that when you've got that momentum and you've got the goodwill and you've got everyone together, you can say, okay, let's put on the table everything that we know so that we all know it together and we can have debates. Well, I thought this, well, I thought that was the case, and whatever else. And again, customer services, these people are gold dust. They're the ones that get bitched and complained at day in, day out, or they're the ones trying to sell your product or whatever it happens to be. To actually have them in the room and just let everybody hear what they would say sums up their experience or the customer experience can be really valuable. Another thing that this sort of event or series of events is good for is building commitment. So I'm sure you've all had experience of projects where it all starts with a big bang and then goes and just nothing. People start to get harder and harder to get hold of. People start to distance themselves from the project. Not part of that. One of the techniques that I've used in the past, which is quite nice, is essentially you make them write up what they're bringing to the project and how much time they're going to spend on it. So this is a bit devilish, but you really need people to be really thinking overtly about what they're going to do here. So it's dead easy for anyone in any company at any time to take part in a 2-day workshop. There's coffee breaks all the time. You get asked to draw things. It's awesome. But what happens after that? So what we've done at eBay a couple of times is we drop everyone's name. We get them to say what they're actually doing here. We get them to commit to a certain amount of time. We then, as a group, critique that and say, well, 100%, really? You've got nothing else to do than this project? So you have that conversation. You again, it's about being open and trying to have everyone on the same page. And then out of those people, you identify your gold users. And those are the people that I can pester. Those are the people that I can go back to time and again. So you're kind of setting up those commitments, those group commitments. So you can say, these people are like, yeah, I'm totally with you 10% of the time, and you can escalate through me, or you can come and ask me about certain resource problems. And then you've got the people, your gold users, who you can go and pester because you're like, should it be a link? I don't know. And you can ask them. So it's quite handy. Another thing that workshops are useful for, again, captive audience, you've brought all these people together, is changing expectations. And this is something I've seen at eBay recently. So eBay is not a particularly nimble organisation. In fact, it's a fairly waterfall, fairly clunky organisation, and some of the back-end systems are held together with chewing gum and bits of fluff. So you get there and you go, oh, what have I done? But the organisation that we're building is very agile. So it's Scrum teams and it's PD and everyone working together. So those two worlds start to collide, and you're actually in a workshop. You've brought in your business unit, or all the people from the business. How do you explain to them, without really bogging them down in the detail, what agile means to them? Because ultimately they don't really care. They just want product and they want it to be usable and they want it to be, can we have it now? Okay, tomorrow. So one of the things that we do is a technique where we just draw some circles and we get everyone to put their name in a post-it note and say, where are you? Right, so this was our kind of one over here. So we asked all of these business folk, the developers, no prizes for guessing, they were in the tech one. Yeah. But one of the things that was really gratifying to see was that they all kind of put their post-its initially down here. They were like, oh, we only look after this part. We're the business. We just tell you what we want, and then you go away and you do it. And actually to be able to have the conversation where we picked off all of those post-its and we put them right there, you own the user experience along with us. You're designing and making decisions that, we're not asking you to code the thing, but we do want you to be involved right from the start and making decisions about, the technology maybe that we use, the way things function. And this was groundbreaking for them. They couldn't conceive of a world where they didn't just sort of get a chance to say, we want this and this and this and this and this, and then somebody vanishes for 3 months, comes back, and they say, no, not like that. This was new stuff for them. And without sort of hectoring to them about agile and what it means, just something simple like that, it can actually make light bulbs go on. Anyway, there had to be internet fridge in here somewhere. So when we talk about building a vision, I'm not sure what went on in that particular meeting that ended up with Twitter on the fridge, but that's one of the more traditional uses probably for a workshop, is that you get people together and you spend a lot of time stroking your beards and going, oh, where do we want to go? Where do we want to be? There's, again, a ton of techniques that you can use for this. One of the ones that I really enjoy, because it turns people into 7-year-olds, you have them felt tip pens, and they go, yay, is product box. So if any of you used this before, show of hands. Okay, product box is just so easy and so effortless and so popular, because it's just like, here, colouring in pens, here's stickers. They're doing work, but it doesn't feel like work. It's like being back at school. And all you're doing is you're giving them a totally blank box. So in the past, I've had people with cornflake boxes, or they've wrapped up empty shoe boxes, or in IT departments, they wrap up all those big boring books about code that are always on the shelves, wrap them in white paper. So you've got a blank box, and the instructions are really simple. If this thing that we're all here together to build was a physical product that you could put in a box and put on a shelf, what would you write about? What would be the claims emblazoned on the box? You know, what would the pictures be of? What would be the nutritional ingredients, or you know, the nutritional information? What would be the free toy? So you just kind of let them, in a fun way, think about what is the essence of this thing that we're trying to create. And the other thing that's quite nice about this, so apart from the engagement factor, which is just lets people run about drawing, and you know, again, goes the point I made earlier about reassuring people that they're creative is quite important at this point, because you get people going, oh, I can't draw, they want to, shy, you know. But as you can see, they lighten up and they carry on. The other thing that's good about this is actually, this isn't just a one-hit wonder. So yes, it's nice, it gives me nice things to put on slides. So when I go to, you know, other business stakeholders, I can say, oh, look, we did things. Oh. But actually, they're nice things to have around, because as the project goes on, so for this particular project, we're now 7 months in. And so we've been very much focused on delivery, and you've got all these functionalities that you want to make sure you get. And you know, every time you speak to users, the big list of stuff that they want is urgent stuff, it's important stuff, and it's all quite, you know, focused. But we were looking over the boxes again, and we remembered this picture. Now, I'm not sure that pineapples grow on trees, but I remembered this picture, and I had to look at it, and actually what it reminded us to think about was that, in this case, these guys are retail, they work in retail promotions, so they spend a lot of time working with sellers, basically, trying to get more stock onto eBay. And so they spend a lot of time, it wouldn't surprise you if I said they spend a lot of time just emailing spreadsheets to each other. I mean, there is no system, that's what we're building now. But you know, one of the things that they were kind of getting at here was automation. And so what they mean by that is, okay, yes, I want to be able to pick up an item. So a seller's, you know, found a nice tricycle, and I'm deciding whether that's go, no go, whether I want it on the site or not, or whether I want it in the Christmas promotion or the toys promotion. But above and beyond that, really what they want to get to is a whole swathe of their merchandising to be happening while they're sitting under a pineapple tree, because they don't have to touch stuff. So what they really want is to be able to say, as long as it's, you know, got wheels, it's red, it's free delivery, it's whatever, it doesn't have jaggy bits that children hurt themselves on, just put it in, on the site. So there are things that require hand curation, things that, you know, you really want to pick up details and obsess over, sort of handbags and lovely shiny things. But there's a lot of shelf stocking that goes on where they would be happy to just put in some criteria and just, you know, just let stuff go. So to have this around, to remember that, and to sort of refocus and go, actually, we have started really just going down the track of single item curation. We sort of came back out and thought, okay, let's prioritise some stories that take us towards automation instead. So it wasn't just, you know, a nice, fun thing. It has got ongoing value. And we've covered this quite a bit. Are you being the customer? So eBay has a thing on its badge that says "Be the customer," which, you know, every company has something like that. But when it comes to actually getting people together and running workshops, you know, one of the things that I've learned from past experiences is that the people in the room really know a lot about customers. Now, could you trust them to design for the customer? No, because then you get the stretchy customer that's everything. But with a bit of filtering, and you know, that's kind of what our role is. Actually, there's a lot of knowledge in the room already. So first of all, they are human. So that's a good start. So they have some insight. And this is, you know, particularly for a site like eBay, MoneySupermarket was the same. It's quite a general populist sort of thing. So you can squeeze a lot out of people. But the question is, how do you do that? So there are two techniques that I find useful here. So personas, which I'm sure we're all familiar with. And the other one is the empathy map, which again, you know, these are quite common tools. But in terms of how I've used them in the past, with personas, it's kind of a brainstormy affair. How many of you have actually created personas with a group of people in a workshop? Or Okay. So this is something that, it requires filtering and it requires validation. So you're not just going to say, okay, who uses the site? Go! And expect to get gold back. You're not going to get that. But what you will get is a set of proto-personas. So the way that I've done this in the past is that you would do sort of traditional brainstorming. Who's using the site? And sort of let everyone scribble down stuff, put it up on the wall. Okay, what are they using the site for? And then we do more scribbly down stuff. So classic brainstorming, pop it all into the wall, do an affinity grouping. And that gives us some sense of, okay, so for the people in this room at this time, this is who we think is using our website. And then you go off and you test it, you validate it, you speak to other people, you see if you can find any evidence that these people exist. You look at your statistics and your metrics, you see if there's any evidence that these people are doing these things. But the point is here that what you've done, instead of, I suppose, saying to those people in the room, we'll handle this, we know the customer, you're inviting them to be the customer, you're inviting them to sort of give their input. And then you're going to craft it into something that's maybe a bit more accurate or a bit more useful. And the other thing which is also quite nice is just doing an empathy map. So this reminds people that as well as being directors, vice presidents, the SEO guy, whatever, they are normal humans that have normal human functions, outside of work. So this is more, if you've got a couple of customers that you have in mind, you can just stick their name and their role or whatever up there. And then you actually ask people to focus on what are they experiencing. So what is it that they're feeling? And this isn't just about your product, this is about the world generally. So, if something like a MoneySupermarket, if we were thinking about something like investments or car insurance, people aren't lying in bed at night going, oh, I wonder if that form works properly, right? That's what we do. So what they're worrying about is whether premiums are going up or whatever it happens to be. That's the sort of thing this captures. So you're kind of capturing the context a bit more of what people are thinking about. And it's quite nice just to sort of loosen up your thinking, So obviously everybody who works in companies tends to be laser beam thinking about really your own stuff, your own company, your own customers, but it's just a nice way to step back. And again, you're doing that in a sort of group way. You can learn more. So all of these things have been stolen from books, obviously. Both of those contain, tons of different tools that you can use. And actually, I'm ashamed to say, I think that might be me done.